All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to unpack a moment of political protest in Australia that really, truly ignited a fierce national conversation. So, the scene is the Australian Senate, and it all kicks off with this symbolic act of defiance right in the middle of a formal parliamentary ceremony. And believe me, this wasn't just some fleeting moment. Nope, it became a real flashpoint. It led to this sharp, heated exchange that honestly reveals some deep, deep divisions in how Australia sees itself. So let's break down what happened. Okay, so what we're looking at here, at the very heart of this whole conflict, are two just fundamentally different ways of seeing the exact same event. On one side, you've got Senator Pauline Hanson. She's very clear. Her walkout was a protest. She says she's had a gutful, her words, of a practice she thinks is just divisive, way overused, and basically amounts to tokenism. And then on the complete other side of the coin, you have the view that, hang on, this is just a matter of respect, right? It's an inclusive gesture, a way to acknowledge the nation's history and its first peoples. And really, what could be more appropriate for the opening of Parliament? So you see the split, right? It's absolutely fascinating. The same exact ceremony is seen by one side as this divisive ideology that has to be protested, and by the other as a respectful recognition that actually strengthens the country. All right, to really get our heads around this clash, we've got to break down what's actually at play here. Let's start with the ceremony itself. So first things first, what is a welcome to country? Well, it's a very specific, formal ceremony. And it's performed by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander elder, a traditional custodian of that particular land. And it's really important to know this is different from an acknowledgement of country. You've probably heard those, they're way more common, and pretty much anyone can give one as a sign of respect for the traditional lands they're on. So, two different things. Okay, the history of this is where things get really interesting. Senator Hanson claimed this whole tradition was just made up back in the 70s. But here's the thing. Sources clarified that while, the modern public version of it became popular then, the actual concept, the idea of welcoming visitors to your land, well, that's an ancient indigenous cultural practice with deep, deep roots. Hanson also uses that word disenfranchised, and that is a really powerful political term. But here's a crucial point. Acknowledging traditional custodianship is a symbolic act. It's not a legal one. It doesn't change property rights. It doesn't change citizenship for anybody. That's a key distinction. So that begs the question, right? If the act is symbolic, why does that language of feeling disenfranchised resonate so strongly with some people? It really shines a light on that huge gap between symbolic meaning and raw political perception. You know, the whole debate brought up a fascinating comparison to another tradition in Parliament, the daily recitation of the Lord's Prayer. It's interesting because for some, hey, both are traditions and should be respected. But for others, one is this deeply embedded historical tradition, while the welcome to country is seen as something recent, maybe even imposed. And this right here, perfectly illustrates the two clashing ideas of respect at the very core of this whole thing. You've got one view, respect is individual. It has to be earned, person to person, based on merit. And then you have the other view, that respect can be a collective thing, a gesture that acknowledges a whole group's shared history and culture. So when you step back, you realize this one single event, it just blows open a much, much broader national conversation about how Australia sees itself. You know, its past, its present, and where it's all heading. And here's where we hit a really crucial tension, the huge gap between what someone intends to do and how it's perceived. Look, Hanson says she's protesting a policy, a procedure. But for a lot of her critics, that's not what they see. They see a direct act of disrespect toward Indigenous Australians as a people. This gap, it's a constant challenge in public life, isn't it? The meaning of an action isn't just decided by the person doing it. It's also decided by all the different people watching, each with their own perspective. So in the end, this whole incident isn't really just about a ceremony, is it? It's more like a mirror. It reflects these much deeper questions that, frankly, many countries around the world are grappling with right now. Questions about history, identity, and what it actually means to be a truly unified nation. And that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to chew on. When we look at a nation's past and all the symbols we use to represent it, where do you draw the line? Where is the line between a meaningful tradition that brings people together and a political act that just drives them apart? The answer to that? Well, it seems like that debate is far from over.